The 21st Discourse. The people have deeds to their credit like a mountain of goodness, yet they do not regard them as adding up to one good deed. Their attitude is one of humility, and they put themselves on a very lowly plane. You should take this as an example of the humble behavior you ought to be practicing. Your own attitude must be one of humility, of cautious awareness and timidity, as a precaution against disturbing and spoiling the pure serenity of the innermost being, and causing upset feelings in the breast. If you keep this up as a regular practice, a sense of security will come to you from Allah. Almighty and glorious is He, setting a seal upon your heart and your innermost being, and paneling the walls of your private retreat. For these, as well as for the limbs and organs of your physical body, there will come to be signs and indications, spoken tidings, and expressions of glorification and remembrance. Your heart will hear marvelous wonders, but even if a word of this were to come out through your mouth, not a word of it would be heard by your own outer self or any of your fellow creatures. This will be something that is not at all difficult for you. Indeed, you will become accustomed to this as a blessing that is often talked about within your own self. And as for the blessing of your Lord, tell of it. 93:11 O Saint, you must talk about these inner blessings you and your own self, whatever you may be involved in. You must talk about the blessing of your Lord. Almighty and glorious is He, and the gracious favor He has bestowed upon you, but you must do so in private, because concealment is one of the preconditions for being a saint, whereas open disclosure is one of the preconditions for being a prophet. In the case of the saint, his open disclosure can only be toward Allah. Almighty and glorious is He, for if he makes his business public, he will be taken to task and deprived of his spiritual state. It may be, however, that his business comes to be publicly known purely through the action of Allah. Almighty and glorious is He, in which case he will not be subject to chastisement and reproach, since he cannot be held responsible. Somebody once said to me, I notice that, when anyone else receives a spiritual experience, he will always keep it a secret, whereas you will disclose it openly. I responded to this by saying, woe unto you! We have never made anything public. This disclosure happens involuntarily, because of a superior force, not by deliberate intent. Whenever my reservoir becomes full to the brim, its contents must be reduced, so, when the opportunity arises, they spill out all around it, without my having any choice in the matter. What am I to do about it? Woe unto you! You are devoting all your attention to the contributions and the state of your finances, to the group premises and the people. Your heart is too full. You must take to the deserts and the empty spaces. Then, when He has brought you the treasure of nearness to Him, that is when it will be appropriate for you to settle down among the people, for then it will be their turn. May Allah bestow His mercy upon anyone who believes what I have to say, upon anyone who tastes what I have to say, upon anyone who puts it into practice in his private and his public life. O my people! You must go on struggling and making strenuous efforts, and never give up in despair, for relief may come at any moment. Surely you must have heard Him say, exalted is He, it may be that Allah will bring some new thing to pass thereafter. 65:1 You should be afraid of your Lord, and you should also pin your hopes on Him. Surely you must have heard Him say, exalted is He, if Allah warns you to beware of Himself. 3:28 To the extent of your fearfulness and your wariness, you will experience safekeeping. Put all your trust in your Lord, and devote yourselves to Him. Surely you must have heard Him say, exalted is He, and whenever someone puts all his trust in Allah, He will suffice him. 65:3 O Allah, enable us to do without your creatures. Enable us to do without those who have accumulated material possessions, then piled them beneath their feet and swaggered over them. They are immersed in their arrogant pride. The poor come begging and pleading for their help, but they pretend to be deaf. O Allah, include us among those who lay down all their needs before you alone, among those who appeal to you alone for help with things that are important to them. Ameen.